Shockwaves hit The View today. Tiffany Trump, daughter of President Donald Trump, was suddenly asked to leave after a heated confrontation about her controversial new jeans advertisement. What started as a light-hearted interview spiraled into chaos, live on national TV. The hosts never expected Tiffany to fight back the way she did, and America hasn't stopped talking since. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe for more breaking celebrity and political showdowns that the mainstream media won't tell you about. Tiffany Trump has always been known as the quiet one in her family. While her father, President Donald Trump, dominates headlines, Tiffany has spent most of her life staying away from the political chaos. She built a reputation as the calm and collected Trump. A law school graduate with a sharp sense of style, she carved out her own identity far from the shouting matches and the flashing cameras that followed her siblings. To many, she was the artistic one, the intellectual, the daughter who preferred peace over politics. But that image began to shift the moment she entered the fashion world. Tiffany had recently partnered with a major fashion label for a campaign called Denim Dreams. The ad showed her walking confidently through the streets of New York, wearing jeans from her own collection. It was meant to celebrate independence and self-expression. Some viewers praised it as bold, modern, and empowering. They said it showed a softer side of the Trump brand. But others were not so kind. Critics called it tone-deaf, accusing her of using glamour to distract from the controversy surrounding her father's presidency. The campaign went viral almost instantly. Within hours, social media turned the ad into a battleground. Supporters applauded her message of confidence. Opponents saw it as privilege disguised as empowerment. The mix of admiration and outrage pushed Tiffany back into the public eye in a way she had never experienced before. And that is when The View came calling. Producers from the show reached out to her team, saying they wanted a friendly chat. They promised it would be lighthearted. Just fashion, career goals, and life as a young entrepreneur. For Tiffany, it seemed like a good opportunity to clear the air. She wanted people to see who she really was beyond politics. She agreed to appear on the show, not realizing how quickly things would spiral out of control. Behind the scenes, tension was already building. Staff members whispered that the episode might take a different turn. The producers hinted that certain questions could come up. Tiffany's team was told not to worry, that the hosts were excited to have her. But as cameras started rolling and the lights grew hotter, that calm, quiet image began to crack. No one in the studio knew that within an hour, this would become one of the most talked about interviews in The View's history. The studio lights were bright and sharp, reflecting off the glossy stage floor of The View. The crowd buzzed with excitement as cameras swept across the audience. It was one of those mornings where the energy in the room felt electric. Everyone knew this episode would draw attention. Tiffany Trump was about to appear live on national television, and people wanted to see what she had to say. Some were there out of curiosity, others just wanted to witness the unexpected. As the announcer introduced her name, Tiffany stepped onto the stage with a confident smile. She waved politely to the cheering audience, her soft blue dress moving neatly as she walked toward the table. The hosts greeted her warmly. Joy Behar gave a half hug. Sunny Hostin smiled professionally. Whoopi Goldberg nodded with her usual calm. Tiffany sat down, crossing her legs and tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. For a moment, it looked like everything was going perfectly. The conversation started light. They asked about her time at Georgetown Law, her experience balancing school with public life, and how she managed to keep her distance from Washington drama. Tiffany answered smoothly. She talked about the importance of education, how she admired her father's work ethic, and how she wanted to create her own path. The audience seemed impressed. There was laughter, applause, and even a few approving nods from the co-hosts. Then as the segment moved on, the tone shifted slightly. Joy mentioned Tiffany's growing influence in fashion. They showed clips from her new Denim Dreams campaign on the big screen behind them. Tiffany smiled and said she wanted to inspire young women to feel strong and confident in their own skin. The crowd clapped again. But then Sunny Hostin leaned forward. Her expression was calm, but her question was sharp. She asked, "Tiffany, your new jeans ad has been praised by some people, but others are calling it tone-deaf. Do you think it is appropriate, given your family's politics and your father's position?" The question hung in the air. The audience grew quiet. Tiffany's smile faded slightly, but she kept her composure. She straightened up, glanced at the hosts, and gave a small nod before answering. Her voice was steady. She said the ad was never about politics, that it was about individuality and confidence. She explained that fashion should unite people, not divide them. But the tension in the room started to build. Joy looked down at her notes. Whoopi shifted in her chair. The audience began to murmur. Tiffany noticed it too, and for a brief second, her calm expression turned guarded. She was trying to hold her ground, but the tone of the show had clearly changed. What started as a friendly interview was beginning to feel like a debate. Sunny followed up, pressing the same issue again. She mentioned that many critics saw the ad as a distraction from political controversies. Tiffany smiled tightly and said that people were free to have opinions, but she would continue to express herself through her work. There was a polite laugh from the audience, but the warmth had faded. The room felt heavier, more uncertain. Behind the cameras, producers exchanged looks. They could sense where this was going. Tiffany, sitting under the harsh studio lights, was doing her best to stay composed. But anyone watching closely could see her eyes harden just a little. She was ready to defend herself if she had to. Before we go further, do not forget to hit that subscribe button for more explosive celebrity moments like this. You will not want to miss what happens next. Back on the set, Whoopi tried to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, but the shift was already done. The smiles had become tighter, the laughs shorter. Tiffany's answers grew more careful, and the audience leaned in, sensing that something bigger was coming. The calm start of the show was over. What began as a polite conversation was now turning into something much more intense. The moment the topic of the jeans ad came up, the air inside the studio seemed to tighten. What had started as a casual discussion about Tiffany Trump's life and career was suddenly turning into something sharper. Sunny Hostin's question about privilege opened the door, and the other hosts walked right through it. Joy Behar leaned forward, her tone direct. She asked Tiffany if she believed her success in fashion came from her hard work or from her last name. The question drew a mix of laughter and murmurs from the audience. Tiffany gave a polite smile, the kind that tried to keep things calm. She said she understood where people were coming from, but her career was her own. She talked about working long hours with her creative team, about wanting to inspire confidence in young women who often felt judged. Before she could continue, Sunny jumped in again, asking if she thought it was fair for someone from a political family to use their public platform for a fashion ad. Tiffany's eyes focused sharply for a moment. Her tone stayed smooth but firmer now. She said that confidence should not depend on politics, that people should be able to express themselves freely regardless of who their family is. The tension began to spread. Joy raised an eyebrow. Sarah Haynes tried to lighten the mood by complimenting the ad's design, but it was too late. The tone of the conversation had changed completely. The audience sensed it. Some clapped, others stayed silent. Cameras zoomed in on Tiffany's face, capturing her calm expression, even as her jaw tightened slightly. Then Joy spoke again. She said the slogan on Tiffany's jeans ad, "Confidence never fades," sounded like something from a White House campaign. The audience gasped. It was one of those moments that immediately divides a room. Some people laughed awkwardly. Others looked uncomfortable. Tiffany's smile disappeared. She took a breath and looked directly at Joy. "Maybe confidence makes some people uncomfortable," she said. The crowd reacted instantly. A few people cheered. Others groaned. But Tiffany's tone did not waver. It was calm, measured, and sharp. It was the voice of someone who had spent years being underestimated and was finally tired of it. Joy blinked, taken aback for a second. Sunny tried to step in again, but Tiffany continued. She explained that her campaign was not about politics or privilege. It was about showing women that they could define confidence for themselves. She said that everyone faces criticism, and that she had learned not to let public opinion dictate her identity. There was something steady in her delivery, like she had rehearsed it in her mind for years but was only now saying it out loud. Sarah nodded quietly, but Joy seemed ready to challenge her again. She asked if Tiffany believed she would still have the same opportunities if she were not a Trump. Tiffany paused, then said that she could not change her last name, but she could choose how to represent it. The audience applauded softly, sensing her restraint. At that moment, Whoopi Goldberg glanced toward the control booth. The producers were signaling her to go to commercial. Whoopi gave a subtle nod, trying to shift the mood. She smiled and said they would be right back. But Tiffany was not finished. Before the camera could fade, she leaned forward slightly and said, "I came here to talk about something positive, something that empowers people." It is strange how quickly that turns into an argument. Her voice was still calm, but the frustration was clear. The studio went silent again. Whoopi tried to interject, telling the audience they needed to take a short break, but Tiffany continued speaking. She said that she respected the hosts and their opinions, but she wished conversations about women's success were not always framed by family or politics. The crowd gave a small applause, unsure whether to side with her or wait for the show to cut. Behind the cameras, the producers exchanged urgent looks. One of them gave the signal. The screen flashed to the show's logo, and the feed was cut earlier than planned. The music kicked in, but the tension in the room stayed heavy. The audience whispered among themselves. Some clapped for Tiffany. Others stayed silent, unsure what they had just witnessed. As the lights dimmed for the commercial break, Tiffany leaned back in her chair. She looked calm, but her eyes said something different. She was holding her ground, no matter how uncomfortable the room became. The co-hosts avoided eye contact as crew members rushed around the stage. The segment had gone completely off script. When the camera stopped rolling, the studio filled with quiet chatter. No one knew exactly what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The calm, quiet image Tiffany Trump had carried for years had just been replaced with something much stronger. The world had just seen a side of her that no one expected, and it was only the beginning of what was about to unfold. When the cameras cut to commercial, most people assumed things would cool down. But according to audience reports and a few backstage leaks, the real drama had just begun. Tiffany Trump, still visibly upset, was heard saying to one of the producers, "You invited me here to talk about jeans, not politics." Her voice was steady but sharp, the kind that cuts through noise. Staff members quickly stepped in, trying to calm her down. Some whispered to her that they would fix it after the break. Others urged her to step outside for a moment. But Tiffany stood her ground, refusing to be treated like a political punching bag. Meanwhile, in the audience, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Some people clapped quietly, saying she had every right to defend herself. Others shook their heads, whispering that she had lost control. A few fans in the back even shouted encouragement, telling her to stand tall. It was clear that Tiffany's reaction had split the room. Even off-air, the tension was heavy, almost like the walls of the studio were holding their breath. Behind the scenes, producers were scrambling. The plan had been simple: talk about her new jeans campaign, show a few clips, and move on to the next guest. Instead, they were dealing with a moment that had just gone viral in real time. One crew member reportedly said, "We have never seen anything like this." The control room buzzed with quick decisions. Should they bring her back after the break or quietly end her segment? No one seemed to agree. At the same time, Tiffany's team, who had been sitting backstage, stepped in. Her publicist pulled her aside, trying to calm her nerves and reminding her that everything she said would be clipped and shared online. But Tiffany seemed unbothered. She reportedly said, "Let them clip it. I meant every word." Her confidence, whether calculated or genuine, had the room frozen. When the cameras came back on, something felt off. Viewers noticed right away that Tiffany's seat was empty. The panel looked uneasy, especially Whoopi Goldberg, who cleared her throat before addressing the audience. "We had to take a moment off camera," she said, choosing her words carefully. Her tone was professional, but her expression told another story. The co-hosts tried to move on, shifting to the next topic, but it was impossible to ignore the silence where Tiffany had been sitting just minutes earlier. Within moments, clips from the segment started flooding Twitter and TikTok. One video showed Tiffany's fiery exchange with Joy Behar. Another captured the moment Whoopi called for a break. Fans online debated what really happened during those off-camera minutes. Some accused the show of silencing her. Others claimed she had stormed off on her own. The hashtag #TiffanyOnTheView began trending before the episode even finished airing. By the end of the day, millions of views had piled up. Comment sections filled with mixed reactions, some praising Tiffany for standing up for herself, others calling her out for bringing politics into what was supposed to be a lifestyle discussion. News outlets picked up the story within hours, framing it as another example of tension between politics, privilege, and public image. Inside the studio, staff members were still reeling. The energy that had filled the room just minutes earlier now felt heavy. Some reportedly called it one of the most uncomfortable moments in the show's recent history. But others whispered that it might also be one of its most unforgettable. Tiffany Trump, the daughter of the sitting president, had just turned what was meant to be a casual interview about denim into a viral cultural moment. And as the world argued online, one thing became clear: this was no longer just about jeans. It was about identity, media bias, and how one bold response could shake up daytime television. The View had seen controversy before, but this time the storm was different. It had a last name that everyone knew, and a voice that refused to be silenced. Within minutes of the broadcast, the internet exploded. The hashtag #TiffanyTrumpOnTheView began trending on X, formerly known as Twitter. Clips of the heated exchange were everywhere. Some showed Tiffany calmly defending her ad campaign, while others replayed Joy Behar's interruption again and again. Everyone had an opinion, and no one seemed willing to stay quiet. Supporters flooded social media with praise. They said Tiffany had finally stood her ground and refused to be bullied. Many admired her composure under pressure, calling her the calm in the chaos. Fans posted side-by-side images of her jeans ad and screenshots from the show, saying the message of confidence was clear both on and off camera. One user wrote, "She said it perfectly. Confidence does not need permission." Another added, "This was not a meltdown. It was self-respect on live TV." But critics told a very different story. Some accused her of acting entitled and out of touch. Others called it a spoiled meltdown, saying she used the interview to play the victim. Comment threads quickly turned into battlegrounds between those who saw her as a strong woman speaking her truth and those who thought she was exploiting her family name. The debate grew louder by the hour. Influencers jumped in too. Fashion pages reposted her denim ad, praising the campaign for its clean visuals and bold message. But political commentators twisted it into something else. They claimed it was a disguised political statement rather than a simple fashion promotion. Soon, even lifestyle bloggers were weighing in, arguing about where confidence ends and privilege begins. As the story spread, the media took sides. Fox News aired a segment titled, "Tiffany Trump Stands Tall Against Biased Hosts," painting her as a target of unfair criticism. CNN, on the other hand, ran the headline, "Tiffany Trump Sparks On-Air Clash After Defending Controversial Ad." Each outlet shaped the story to fit its audience. The contrast between headlines showed just how divided public opinion had become. In the middle of this storm, Tiffany stayed silent for almost a full day. Then she posted a single photo on Instagram. It showed her in the same jeans from the ad, standing against a white backdrop with a confident smile. The caption was short but powerful, "Never let anyone silence your confidence." That one line hit like lightning. Within hours, the post reached millions of likes. Celebrities, influencers, and everyday people filled the comments. Some praised her strength and grace. Others mocked her tone, saying she was playing into her father's image. But regardless of opinion, everyone was talking about her. The post became one of her most liked ever, and it pushed the story into another viral wave. Fashion brands, talk shows, and podcasts began discussing it too. Some said it was a masterclass in publicity. Others said it was a warning about how quickly a simple conversation could spiral in today's world. What started as an interview about denim had turned into a national conversation about privilege, confidence, and power. For Tiffany Trump, it was more than a viral moment. It was a public test of how she would stand on her own, away from her father's shadow. And whether people loved or hated what she said, there was no denying one thing. She had made the world pay attention. By the next morning, the story had reached the White House. Reporters filled the press room, eager to get an official comment. The press secretary kept the statement short but firm, saying the president was aware of what happened on The View and found the incident disrespectful and biased. That one sentence was enough to send news outlets into overdrive. It confirmed what many suspected, that the Trump family had taken the situation personally. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed that President Trump was furious. According to close sources, he watched the clip himself and was not pleased with how Tiffany had been treated. He reportedly told staff that his daughter had shown grace under pressure, and that the show owed her an apology. Within hours, that quote began circulating online, fueling even more attention. Tiffany's mother, Marla Maples, also spoke up. She posted a message on her social media, saying she was proud of how Tiffany handled herself with class and patience. Her words were gentle but carried weight. Many fans applauded the message, calling it a perfect example of maternal support. Others noted how it added warmth to the story, softening what had become a political shouting match. Soon, other Trump family members joined in too, though in quieter ways. Ivanka posted a photo captioned, "Strong women lift each other up." Eric Trump shared a quote about standing firm in the face of unfair treatment. Even Melania Trump's team liked a few posts praising Tiffany's calmness during the chaos. None of them mentioned The View directly, but their messages were clear enough for everyone to understand. Meanwhile, The View's producers decided to issue their own response. Their statement said that Tiffany Trump had not been kicked out of the studio. They claimed the segment was cut short because of timing adjustments, and that the show values open conversation with all guests. But to viewers, the explanation felt thin. Many pointed out that Whoopi's abrupt comment and Tiffany's empty seat told a different story. By the end of the day, both sides had said their piece, yet the tension remained. What had started as a light-hearted interview about fashion had turned into a headline-making controversy involving politics, media, and family loyalty. Tiffany Trump had gone from the quiet Trump sibling to the center of a national conversation, and the White House was standing firmly behind her. The morning after the broadcast, Tiffany Trump woke up to find her name everywhere. Her social media had exploded overnight. Thousands of new followers poured in, with comments ranging from supportive cheers to sharp criticism. For the first time in years, Tiffany was not just a background figure in the Trump family. She was front and center, and people could not stop talking about her. Brands noticed the attention immediately. Some fashion companies reached out to offer new deals, calling her the voice of modern confidence. They wanted her to represent authenticity and independence. But a few quietly backed away, worried about the political heat surrounding her name. It became a split reaction in the industry. Some saw risk, while others saw a golden opportunity to align with someone who stood firm in the spotlight. Online discussions began shifting too. A large part of the public started to see Tiffany differently. She was no longer just the quiet Trump daughter who stayed out of family controversies. She was being called the bold Trump daughter, the one who stepped into a tough situation and held her ground without losing composure. Commentators on podcasts and talk shows analyzed her every word and expression from the interview, saying that her calm but firm responses showed a side of her that many had never seen before. Media analysts joined the conversation, breaking down how this moment had completely changed her public image. For years, Tiffany had been known for keeping a low profile. She rarely appeared in political discussions and mostly focused on her studies, fashion, and personal life. But this single appearance flipped that narrative. Analysts described it as her defining media moment, comparing it to how one viral incident can transform a public figure overnight. The most surprising part was how Tiffany handled it all. Instead of backing away or issuing long explanations, she leaned into the message she had always tried to promote: confidence, individuality, and freedom. While some people expected her to disappear from the spotlight, she did the opposite. She began working quietly on a new project inspired by everything that had happened. Just a few months later, she announced her own fashion line. The theme was simple yet powerful: freedom and self-expression. Every piece in the collection reflected her belief that style should represent confidence, not conformity. Her promotional video opened with a clear statement: no one should ever feel small for being themselves. Fans immediately connected the message to her experience on The View, and the collection sold out within days. By the end of the year, Tiffany Trump had done something few expected. She turned controversy into momentum. What started as a tense TV moment had become the spark that redefined her image. She was no longer the quiet figure in the background of the Trump legacy. She had built her own path, one rooted in strength, confidence, and a voice that refused to be silenced. What started as a simple TV interview turned into one of the most unexpected moments of Tiffany Trump's public life. She arrived on The View to talk about a jeans campaign, but by the time the cameras stopped rolling, she had become the center of a national debate. From the tense exchange on set to the viral explosion online, the incident reshaped how people saw her not as the quiet Trump, but as someone ready to speak up and stand firm. The fallout spread far beyond the studio. The View once again found itself at the center of a political storm, accused by some of bias and praised by others for asking tough questions. For Tiffany, the clash became both a challenge and an opportunity. It tested her composure, but it also gave her a platform to show strength and independence in a way that no carefully planned interview ever could. The moment also showed how celebrity interviews have changed. They are no longer just light conversations about fashion or personal life. Every question now carries weight. Every reaction becomes a headline. What used to be entertainment has turned into a stage for ideology, image, and influence. Whether you agreed with her that day or not, Tiffany Trump made one thing clear: silence is not her style. She walked into that studio as a guest and left as a statement. Her calm defiance reminded people that even in the most heated moments, confidence speaks louder than chaos. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. More dramatic, behind-the-scenes stories are coming soon, where politics and pop culture collide in ways you never expect.